Have you ever noticed how the more available you are, the less people seem to value you? It's a strange and frustrating paradox of human nature. You are conditioned from a young age to be agreeable, to say yes, even when your entire being wants to scream no. You answer every text immediately, as if your response time is a measure of your friendship. You rush to fill every silence in a conversation because the quiet feels awkward and uncomfortable. You have been taught, subtly and overtly, that your worth lies in how accessible and accommodating you are to others. But here is a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. This excessive availability is not a virtue. It is a prison. It's a self-constructed cage built from the fear of disappointing others, the fear of conflict, and the fear of being seen as difficult or selfish. And as long as you believe you must be accessible at all times, you will be manipulated, drained, and forgotten as soon as you are no longer useful. Do you know why? Because being always available makes you predictable, and everything that is predictable is eventually taken for granted. People begin to see you not as a person, but as a resource. You become an emotional emergency button. They press it for attention, for validation, for a quick fix to their boredom or anxiety, and then they put you back on the shelf until the next time they need something. This constant giving, this impulse to please, is a subtle form of self-abandonment. Each time you prioritize someone else's comfort over your own peace, you send a message to yourself that your needs don't matter. That is where the point lies. The tool to reclaim your power, to regain your self-respect, is not a loud argument, a dramatic confrontation, or a desperate explanation. It is silence. In a world that screams for your attention through notifications, demands, and endless noise, the greatest power is to not give it away so freely. This is not about playing games or engaging in manipulation. This is about understanding the psychology of human interaction and the profound value of scarcity. When something is rare, it is perceived as more valuable. When you are less available, your presence becomes more valuable. Your words carry more weight. Your yes becomes more meaningful. This is the art of strategic silence. To understand why withdrawing your availability is so powerful, we must touch on a concept from the psychologist Carl Jung, the persona. The persona is your social mask. It is the version of you that you present to the world, the good employee, the agreeable friend, the strong parent, the funny colleague. It is a necessary and even useful tool for navigating social life. The problem arises when we over-identify with this mask. When the persona of being always there for others becomes your entire identity, you lose touch with who you are beneath it. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you answer a call you do not have the energy for, every time you swallow your own opinion to avoid conflict, you are feeding the mask. You are choosing the persona over your authentic self. Jung would say this is the root of deep psychic exhaustion. The constant effort to uphold a mask that is not your true face is profoundly draining. It leads to a state of chronic stress, anxiety, and eventually burnout, where you feel emotionally numb and disconnected even from your own life. This isn't just mental fatigue. It manifests physically as headaches, poor sleep, and a constant feeling of being overwhelmed. This over-identification with the persona is what prevents individuation. Individuation, as Jung defined it, is the lifelong journey to become your true, integrated self. It's the process of discovering and embracing all parts of who you are, the light and the shadow, beneath the social masks you've learned to wear. To do this, Jung argued, you must consciously withdraw from the constant noise of the outside world to listen to your inner world. You cannot discover your authentic self if you are constantly being told who to be by others' expectations. Therefore, the act of strategically withdrawing your availability is not a selfish act. It is a necessary step in the process of individuation. It is a declaration of self-worth. It is you telling the world, and more importantly, yourself, my inner life matters. My energy is finite and valuable. I am more than the role I play for others. By creating moments of silence and solitude, you create the space to hear your own voice, to understand your own needs, and to finally begin the journey back to the person you were always meant to be. The modern world is noisy. Everyone wants to be heard, to post their opinion, to win pointless debates. But there is a power few know how to master, the power of conscious, strategic silence. This is not the silence of absence or weakness, but the silence of amplified presence and unshakable confidence. 1. Master the calculated pause. The next time you are in a conversation, especially when asked a direct question, resist the urge to answer immediately. Instead, pause. Take a full 3 to 5 seconds. Inhale, exhale, and let the silence hang in the air. Most people rush to fill any void, fearing that silence will be seen as uncertainty or weakness. A deliberate pause does the opposite. First, it breaks the cycle of reactive compliance. That brief moment of silence is a circuit breaker for the people-pleasing reflex. It moves you out of your emotional, reactive brain and into your logical, thinking brain, giving you the space to choose your response rather than defaulting to your always agreeable persona. Second, it dramatically increases the perceived value of your words. When you speak with deliberation after a pause, your words gain weight and significance. The pause creates anticipation. People instinctively lean in and listen more closely because you've non-verbally signaled that what you're about to say is important. Third, it signals unshakable confidence. A calm, measured pause communicates self-possession and emotional control. It says, I am not flustered. I am not intimidated. I will respond on my own time. This self-control is something people instinctively respect. It shows you are in command of yourself, and therefore in command of the situation. How to practice this? Start small. The next time you order a coffee, pause for 2 seconds before speaking. When a friend asks you a question, take 1 full breath before you answer. This tiny habit builds the muscle of intentionality, making it easier to use the calculated pause in more high-stakes situations, like a job interview or a difficult conversation. 2. Embrace the 80-20 rule of communication. The 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle, suggests that 80% of outcomes come from 20% of causes. In communication, this translates to a powerful guideline. In most interactions, aim to listen 80% of the time and speak only 20% of the time. This may feel unnatural at first, especially if you're used to filling silence, but true power comes from controlling the flow of information, not from dominating the conversation. When you are constantly talking, you are giving away information and energy. When you listen, you gather it. By speaking less, you transform from a performer into a strategic observer. Your influence increases because when you finally do speak, your 20% is targeted, insightful, and impactful. People who talk constantly often see their influence diminish over time. Their words become background noise. When you make your words a scarce and valuable resource, people stop and listen. This practice also forces you to become a better listener, to truly hear what is being said and what isn't, which allows you to understand the true dynamics of the situation. How to practice this? In your next conversation, set a mental intention to listen more than you speak. Focus on asking open-ended questions that start with what, how, or why to encourage the other person to talk more. Instead of thinking about what you'll say next, focus entirely on understanding their point of view. You will be amazed at how much more you learn and how much more influential you become. 3. Stop over-explaining yourself. No is a complete sentence. However, for those stuck in the people-pleasing persona, it feels like an incomplete thought that must be followed by a long list of justifications, apologies, and reasons. This behavior is a critical mistake because it fundamentally undermines your authority. An excessive explanation signals to the other person that you feel insecure or guilty about your boundary, and that your no is not a firm decision, but a starting point for negotiation. When you set a boundary, state it calmly, clearly, and concisely. Then, stop talking. Instead of, "I'm so sorry, I can't help you move this weekend. I wish I could, but my cousin is in town, and I've also been feeling really run down and stressed from work, so I was hoping to just get some rest." Try, "I'm not available this weekend." The silence that follows is your ally. Let it do the work. You do not need to fill it, and you are not responsible for managing the other person's reaction. By refusing to over-explain, you are non-verbally communicating that your decision is final and that you respect yourself enough to honor it. This is not rudeness, it is clarity. It teaches people that your boundaries are non-negotiable and that your time and energy are yours to command. How to practice this? The next time you need to say no to a small request, try it. Decline an invitation or a small favor with a simple, "Thank you for asking, but I won't be able to," or "I can't commit to that right now." Don't offer any further explanation. Notice the discomfort and sit with it. Each time you do this, you are retraining your nervous system to understand that setting a boundary is safe and acceptable. 4. Allow uncomfortable pauses in conflict. In any high-stakes conversation, negotiation, or conflict, silence is your most powerful tool. When a tense moment arises, perhaps someone makes an aggressive demand or an unfair criticism, the instinct is to immediately defend, justify, or retaliate. The powerful move is to do the opposite. Get comfortable with the discomfort. Let the silence stretch. This strategic silence achieves several things. It shows that you are not intimidated or emotionally reactive. You are grounded. The silence also creates a psychological vacuum. The other person, feeling the discomfort of the unresolved tension, will often feel compelled to fill that vacuum. In doing so, they may reveal more of their motivations, soften their position, or even offer a concession without you having to ask. The person who is more comfortable with silence holds the power in the exchange. When you refuse to be rushed, you force the conversation to proceed at your pace, on your terms. How to practice this? During a disagreement, if someone says something provocative, instead of jumping in, simply hold eye contact and remain quiet for a few seconds. Let their words hang in the air. This small act can completely diffuse the tension and shift the power dynamic back in your favor. It signals that you will not be drawn into an emotional battle and that you expect a more measured, respectful interaction. The journey from being constantly available to being selectively present is a practice. It will feel unnatural and even frightening at first. It begins with the small, conscious decision to value your own energy and peace above the fleeting approval of others. When you stop being the person who is available to everyone for anything, something profound begins to happen. First comes the silence. Then comes solitude. But this is not the empty solitude of loneliness. It is the rich solitude of total presence, your own. It is the solitude of one who no longer betrays themselves just to keep others close. In this quiet space, you will start to hear your own thoughts, feel your own desires, and understand your own worth, separate from what you do for others. You are not fleeing the world, you are returning to yourself. It is at this point that you stop being a reactor, constantly responding to the whims and needs of others, and you become a creator, intentionally shaping your own life. You may be misunderstood by those who benefited from your lack of boundaries, but for the first time, you will begin to be truly respected. Because when you are no longer available for just anything, your time, your energy, and your presence become valuable. And in that quiet, authentic space you have carved out for yourself, you will find not only the respect of others, but more importantly, a profound and lasting respect for yourself. You will have earned the privilege of a lifetime to finally become who you truly are.